At a family business get-together, my uncle on my husband's side asked me, "So, when are you guys planning to have a kid?" I patted my flat stomach and smiled, looking down. Already expecting. Everyone turned to congratulate Mark. Congrats. We'd been married for 10 years, and as far as outsiders were concerned, the only thing missing was a kid. Now, finally, we were complete. Too bad, Mark just frowned, his jaw tight, no joy in his eyes. After the party, he stopped me. "Diana, we've been divorced for 3 months. You're lying again. Trying to trap me this time too?" I looked up, confused. When did I ever say the kid was yours? When I drove up to that pottery studio, Mark was messing around and laughing with a girl. I knew the girl too. Her name was Cloud. She just graduated college this year and was a new intern at Mark's company. When she smiled, she got these little dimples, exactly like his first love, Clara. The first time Mark saw her, he was so out of it, he knocked over his water cup. Right now, he had his arms half around her from behind, holding her close. His big hands, with their defined knuckles, were on the girl's small, delicate ones. Their hands were all tangled up, covered in clay. Guess they'd been playing around, since they had mud on their faces too. I couldn't believe he, with his crazy cleanliness, could handle having mud on his face. I sat in the car, watching them look so cozy, and my eyes kind of stung. I looked away, closed my eyes for a bit, and tried to calm down my annoyed mood. I opened the car door and got out. They were already chasing each other all over the yard. Mark had another really obvious mud print on his face. "Come and get me, come on." The young girl's voice was sweet. She looked back at Mark, challenging him as she ran, full of youthful energy. "You stop right there, see if I don't punish you good." Mark had a lump of clay in his hand too, chasing after the young girl. "Watch where you're going, don't fall." He pretended to be mad, but his eyes were totally full of smiles. He even reached out now and then to protect the girl darting around. So thoughtful and careful. And me, his wife of several years, had never felt anything like that. He was always super serious around me. I never expected him to actually smile like that, it just wasn't for me. I gripped my bag, stood quietly by the door, and just watched this whole scene play out. Just before I totally lost it, Mark finally noticed me. He froze, slowly stopped, wiped the smile off his face, and his eyebrows furrowed slightly. "How did you find me here?" I stood my ground, trying to hold back the anger inside. I'd called him 1,000,000 times today, and he hadn't picked up. Finally, I really pushed it, and his best friend gave me his location. Pretty funny, right? I didn't say anything, but Cloud chimed in, "What?" But she'd been running too fast and not watching where she was going, and she crashed right into me. I frowned and quickly stepped aside, just missing her. She couldn't stop and just fell flat on the ground. She scraped her knee, and a little blood started to show. Her eyes immediately welled up. Mark's face changed, and he rushed over, gently scooping her up in his arms. "Diana, you went too far." His face was full of anger, aimed right at me. I curved my lips and replied slowly, "What did I do?" "You clearly saw her coming and deliberately moved out of the way. You totally did that on purpose to make her fall." He pursed his lips, and the unhappiness and blame in his eyes were obvious. I lifted my hand and brushed off some imaginary dust from my clothes, tilted my head, and smiled. Why couldn't I move? My body is way more valuable than hers. If she'd hit me and hurt me, she probably couldn't afford to pay for it. "You." Mark's face went dark, and his voice got even lower. Cloud reached up and hooked her arms around Mark's neck, rubbing his head gently, and his face softened visibly. Then she turned to me, smiling sweetly, and explained, "Pretty sister, it's not your fault. I wasn't watching where I was going." My uncle here was just too worried and spoke a little harshly. "Don't take it personally." The young girl had a sweet mouth and knew how to talk. Just a few words and she had this guy wrapped around her finger. She was really so kind, even trying to apologize to me, his wife, on behalf of my husband. Mark narrowed his eyes and shifted the girl in his arms unhappily, scaring her into holding onto his neck tightly. Only then did he speak, sounding pleased. Who are you calling old? I'm only 8 years older than you. You're not old, my uncle is really young. Yeah, he wasn't old, I was. After all, I was 32 this year, 2 years older than Mark, and a full 10 years older than Cloud. My curled fingers tightened without realizing it, digging deep into my palms. A sharp pain shot through me, and the pain helped me calm down a bit. By the time I snapped back to reality, Mark had already carried her back to a chair and sat down. He'd even conjured up a sterile cotton swab from somewhere and was getting ready to clean her wound. The young girl was lively and fidgety. Even though she was sitting still on the high stool, her 2 pale legs were swinging back and forth, trying to avoid Mark's hand. Settle down. Mark reached out, grabbed her leg, and put it on his lap. No way, it hurts. The young girl whined, her voice trembling. See if you dare to mess around next time. Even though Mark was scolding her, his movements were instinctively gentle. I'd known Mark for 10 years and been married for 5, but I'd never seen him act so gentle and sweet. I wanted to just turn around and leave, but thinking about my grandpa lying in the hospital bed, I finally gave up. Mark, I need to talk to you about something serious. My face darkened, and I spoke to him. He paused his movements but didn't look up, just brushing me off with, "We'll talk later." I gritted my teeth, anger rising. Do you want Johnny to come and ask you himself? He stood up abruptly. Diana, you always use that trick. Is it fun? Right, he was never willing to be with me. Our first meeting was set up by Johnny. Our marriage only happened because Johnny forced him and his girlfriend to break up. Now, if I wanted him to talk to me properly, I still had to use Johnny's name to make it happen. I rubbed my temples and suddenly felt kind of tired. Whatever, up to you. I looked up at him, then turned and left. But inside, I felt this undeniable ache. Giving up on someone is really hard, but no matter how hard, it's not as hard as waiting for someone who will never turn back. I told myself, Diana, this is the last time. It's been 10 years. If you keep banging your head against that wall, the wall should be down by now. Mark and I had a super basic business marriage. Our families went way back, always linked, and their business interests were too deeply intertwined and complicated. Even if Mark didn't like me, our engagement was set in stone. He couldn't fight it, and I couldn't refuse. Back then, the whole city knew about him and his first love, Clara. At that time, I was secretly happy, even secretly rooting for him. Later, for Clara, he even decided he was going to elope with her. I thought, finally, this marriage can be over. But in the end, he came back. Just him. He was a mess for over half a year and finally gave in. When I saw him again in my family's living room, I knew there was no escaping it. We were like puppets on strings, following the instructions of the elders, from meeting, to engagement, to marriage. In these past few years, except for not having a child yet, we could be considered the most picture-perfect couple in this circle. Coming to find him this time was actually to discuss having a child. Now, it seemed, there was no need for that. Just didn't know how to explain it to Grandpa. Grandpa hadn't been doing too well lately, and his only regret was not seeing the birth of the next generation's heir. I gripped the steering wheel, my unfocused gaze staring blankly ahead, feeling a bit lost inside. The car door was suddenly yanked open hard. My eyebrow twitched. I snapped back to attention and turned to look. Mark, holding back his anger, got into the passenger seat. Cloud told me to come check on you. I was a little surprised and looked past him out the car window. Cloud was standing not too far away, pretending to be strong. The wound on her knee seemed to have opened up again, and blood was running down her pale leg. The mix of red and white stung my eyes. What a dramatic scene of a couple being torn apart. Happy now? His eyes flashed with disgust, and he looked at me expressionlessly. All the complicated feelings I'd had inside just a moment ago vanished instantly. You had to find me today? It's Cloud's birthday today. She's just a young girl all alone in this city, no family, no friends. I was just keeping her company for the day. Men always like to play the savior. Back then, he didn't have the guts to fight his parents for the woman he loved, but now that he had a little power, and just happened to meet a seemingly helpless girl, he wanted to play the hero again. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, turned my head back, and looked ahead, not wanting to look at him. Grandpa hasn't been feeling well these past few days. He wants to see you. I paused, swallowed my pride, and after thinking for a moment, finally said, also, we're not getting any younger, we should have a child. He scoffed. Diana, after all that, that's what you want? And using your grandpa as an excuse. A child is the crystallization of love. Do we have that between us? My face suddenly burned. Like I'd been slapped from a distance, stinging hot. I trembled, bit down hard on my lower lip, held back the tears in my eyes, and after a moment, choked out each word to him. Grandpa really isn't feeling well. He pursed his lips. I'll go see him tomorrow. I was a little disbelieving. So, you're going to ditch me and Grandpa today for some stranger? Don't be unreasonable. She hurt her leg today, and it's all because of you. I'm just making it up to her for you, and as her boss, I can't just ignore it. Besides, Grandpa goes to the hospital every other day for minor stuff. I can just go see him in a couple of days. He tugged at his collar impatiently, but his eyes kept flicking towards the window. If you don't want to go, get out of the car. Listening to the words coming out of his mouth, and seeing how distracted he was, anger rushed through me, and I just swore. His face went black, and he got out of the car without a second thought, slamming the door shut. All in one smooth motion. I turned my head back, took a deep breath, and slammed the gas pedal, speeding away. But by the time I got to the hospital room door, I'd calmed down. I'd promised Grandpa I'd come with Mark today. Now that I was here alone, how was I supposed to explain? Is that Daisy? Why aren't you coming in? Grandpa's weak voice stopped me from pacing. I got my emotions together, rubbed my stiff face, forced a smile, and pushed the door open. Grandpa, I'm here. Mark had to work late suddenly, couldn't make it today. Grandpa sighed and reached up to pat my head. I couldn't keep talking. Daisy, don't force yourself. When someone's feeling down, comfort is the last thing they can handle. The tears I'd been holding back found an outlet and poured out. Daisy, back when your parents died in that car accident, I forced you to get married. Did I do the wrong thing? I was sobbing and could only shake my head desperately. Daisy, I know you and that kid never got along. I honestly thought that feelings would develop over time. How could anyone not like a good girl like you, my Daisy? Too bad that kid couldn't recognize a good thing when he saw it. Do whatever you want to do. Grandpa's got a few more years left, enough for you to grow up. My tears flowed even harder, like I was letting out all the unfairness I'd endured over the years. By the time I'd finished crying, I was kind of hungry. Just as I was looking for something to eat, a candy was offered to my mouth. I burst out laughing. Only Grandpa could still treat me like a kid. Just as I took the candy Grandpa gave me and before I could even put it in my mouth, the door was pushed open. Mark actually followed me. Grandpa, sorry I'm late. Had to work late suddenly today. I pressed my lips together, watching him without saying a word. He walked past me and tucked the blanket around Grandpa. Mark, you're here. I'm a little tired, you talked to Daisy. Grandpa didn't even look at him, just closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. Mark and I left the room one after the other, like we'd planned it. Mark, let's talk. I just came right out with it. I'm already here, what else do you want? His eyebrows furrowed again, like usual. Do you still want to make this work with me? I looked at him calmly, the words difficult to say. I knew he actually wanted a divorce for a long time, he just needed a reason and an opportunity. Now, I was going to personally hand him that chance. What kind of game are you playing now? But right now, he was looking at me warily, full of suspicion. I'm giving you two choices. First, you fire that girl and cut all ties with her, and we make this work. Second, she's just a young girl who just graduated. I just felt sorry for her and kept her company for her birthday today. Why are you always targeting her? Before I could even finish, Mark cut me off sharply. Looking at this man who was completely focused on protecting someone else, I suddenly found it a little funny. And I actually laughed out loud. Since that's the case, I guess you'll like the second choice I'm giving you. Let's get a divorce. I happily made the decision for him. Are you crazy? What kind of joke is this? How can we get a divorce? Or are you trying to threaten me with divorce? His first reaction was anger and disbelief, followed immediately by suspicion and disgust. He didn't believe I actually wanted a divorce. He also didn't believe that I, as I was now, had the standing and ability to suggest divorce. I'm only 32. I still have a long life ahead of me. I shouldn't waste it on someone who doesn't care. I think you probably feel the same way, right? Let's get a divorce. It's better for both of us. Divorce was a happy occasion, and I was in a great mood. I was patient enough to even analyze the pros and cons with him in detail. We can keep it quiet for now. After I sort things out with the company, we can just find some random excuse to announce it later, and the impact shouldn't be that big. With every sentence I spoke, his face got darker. You're dreaming. Do you think Grandpa will agree? Do you think my dad will agree? He ground his back teeth, interrupting me impatiently. Grandpa already knows about us, and he supports me. I'm his only granddaughter. He still wants what's best for me. As for your dad, let's keep it from him for now. We'll talk about it after it's done. Our business dealings will continue as usual in the future, and I don't think he'll disagree. I looked down, carefully considering all the things that could happen after the divorce, trying my best to minimize the risks. Mark's face was completely dark beside me, and he didn't say a word. Let me tell you, if we get divorced, don't even think about getting back together with me. I tilted my head, looked at him, and nodded seriously. Of course. Yeah, definitely. This wasn't playing house. If we got divorced, who'd be crazy enough to get back together? His face went from black to red, and he stormed off in a huff. I looked up at the beautiful sunset and let out a long breath. Felt amazing. The next day, I found a lawyer and drafted the divorce agreement. In the years we were married, we kept things pretty separate, so dividing assets wasn't too complicated. It was just when it came time to sign, Mark was surprisingly hesitant. I frowned slightly and scoffed at him. Don't tell me you're having some cheesy realization that you actually like me? Missing me a little now? His face went dark, and he immediately signed the papers without hesitation. I breathed a sigh of relief. The knot in my stomach loosened. Now I just had to wait a month, and our marriage would be completely over. From then on, we'd have nothing to do with each other. With the divorce agreement in hand, I picked Grandpa up from the hospital. He sighed softly, patted my head, didn't say anything, but just handed me a candy. I squatted beside Grandpa's feet, put the candy in my mouth, and it was sweet. All these years, the few moments of sweetness I got were from Grandpa's candy. I looked up at him, smiling with my eyes. Grandpa, the candy is sweet, and my life will be sweet from now on too. Grandpa, you need to take good care of yourself. Your granddaughter still needs your help to hold things down. You'll have to help me take care of the baby in the future too. Okay. I need to stay healthy. I still need to help my Daisy take care of her baby. Grandpa chuckled, bending over, and I smiled with my eyes, too. Yeah, a man who can't have kids, just dump him, right? Just replace him with a new one later. Big deal. But Grandpa still gave me a month-long vacation to get myself together. I thought about it and finally booked a flight to Los Angeles. Didn't expect to run into someone I knew in another country. On the third day in Los Angeles, I unexpectedly ran into Mark's first love, the one that got away, Clara, at the hospital. I was there to ask about the requirements for single IVF. And she was my doctor. I thought she'd give me the cold shoulder, but to my surprise, she was super welcoming. She took me all over Los Angeles, trying different foods and walking every street. She took me scuba diving and hiking in the mountains, giving me all sorts of new experiences. She was like a wild rose, full of a free-spirited vibe. After hanging out with her, I realized how wrong I'd been to see her as my imaginary rival for all these years. The reason someone becomes the one that got away is definitely their amazing personal charm that no one can resist. That Cloud girl wasn't even 1/10 of what she was. Watching her laugh freely, I clearly understood that when they broke up, it wasn't because she wasn't good enough for Mark and was forced to give up on the relationship. It was because she saw the gap between her and Mark and actively left him. Back then, Mark was indecisive and cowardly. On one hand, he didn't want to give up his family inheritance, and on the other, he couldn't bring himself to give up that love. Too bad sometimes you can't have both love and money. Clara, on the other hand, was someone who loved hard and left easily, someone who could pick up and let go. She cut off the relationship that had no future, went overseas, and made something of herself. She talked to me about a lot of things. I apologized to her for taking her boyfriend back then. But she just smiled and shook her head, saying that even if they had managed to stay together, it wouldn't have lasted. The reason Mark still missed her was just because he'd romanticized the path he didn't take in his head. The one that got away can only hang high up in the sky. Once someone tries to hold them in their hands, they'll realize it's just a grain of plain rice. It would only end up rotten and smelly. Looking at the dimples faintly appearing at the corners of her mouth, I finally understood what the one that got away truly was. I chuckled softly too, and the last bit of lingering doubt in my heart disappeared. She winked at me and whispered, "Later, I'll pick out some top-quality sperm for you. Guarantee you'll have a cute mixed-race baby." I grinned and nodded enthusiastically. While I was finishing up the paperwork and getting my pre-pregnancy checkup, Mark unexpectedly called me. "Diana, I fired Cloud." "Me? Now, what did any of that have to do with me?" He cleared his throat and continued, "My old man has been bugging me about having a grandchild lately. I thought about it, and having a kid isn't totally out of the question." I slammed the phone down. Psycho. Talking to someone like that was such a waste of time. Did he think I was some kind of pushover? And what kind of precious species was he? Like I couldn't live without him? If it weren't for needing to talk about some things after the divorce, would have blocked him a long time ago. After scheduling the procedure and leaving the details for Clara to handle, I went back home early. The divorce agreement I discussed with Mark was ready. It was time to get the divorce certificate. Didn't know how he found out my flight information, but as soon as I got off the plane, I saw him standing out in the crowd, head and shoulders above everyone else. He was still so popular. In just a few minutes, he'd already turned away several young girls who came up to ask for his contact info. His face was his biggest asset. But seeing him at that moment, the slight smile I'd had on my face instantly disappeared. He, however, raised an eyebrow at me and smiled, then strode forward, handed me a bouquet of roses he'd prepared, and naturally took my suitcase with the other hand. I honestly didn't know what to say for a moment. Sure enough, a shameless person is unstoppable. Especially someone who'd been praised their whole life. He thought our current situation was just a husband and wife squabble, and all he had to do was swallow his pride a little, coax me, and we could go back to how things were. But I wasn't in the mood to argue with him right now. I'd just treat him like free labor, even if he was annoying. After getting in the car, I just got in the back seat. That bouquet of roses had already been tossed carelessly at my feet. He always forgot I never liked roses. His face went dark, and he spoke through gritted teeth. "I've already fired Cloud. How long are you going to keep this up? Plus, you want a kid, and I agreed to that too. What else do you want? My patience has limits." I just closed my eyes and rested, only saying calmly, "Drive safely." He stopped talking. The whole way, He didn't say another word, but today he honked his horn way more often, like he had road rage. Suddenly, a phone ringing broke the tense silence in the car. He didn't even think, just put it on speaker. As soon as he answered, his best friend's smug voice eagerly came through. "Mark, I've already set up your little sister-in-law with a job at my company, and found her a place to live. Don't worry, I'll make sure she's comfortable." I sneered and just spoke up. "Mark, is this what you meant by cutting ties with her completely? What are you yelling about, Jeff? What little sister-in-law?" Mark immediately cut off the rambling on the other end. Silence on the other end. I slowly opened my eyes and looked in the rearview mirror. The guilt and panic on his face flashed by. "Oh, Daisy's there too? Sorry, I had a little to drink just now, called the wrong number, said the wrong thing." After a moment of scrambling, the person on the other end hung up. Ha! That was a pretty good trick, swapping one thing for another. "It's still early. Let's just go to the courthouse and get the divorce certificate." I checked the time. Yep, plenty of time. He slammed on the brakes, the front of the car swerved and turned, and he screeched to a stop by the side of the road. I wasn't ready for it and hit my head on the back of the front seat. I quickly reached out to steady myself and yelled angrily, "Mark, are you crazy? If you want to die, don't take me with you." He was even angrier than I was. "Diana, I told you, I'll handle Cloud. She won't appear in front of you again. What else do you want?" I just felt sorry for her, sympathized with her. "I never did anything to betray you. Why can't you tolerate her?" Even now, he still thought I was being unreasonable. Yes, maybe he hadn't done anything to betray our marriage yet. But that was just because there hadn't been enough time. He just hadn't gotten around to it yet. I looked at him calmly, my face expressionless. There are tons of people out there who are worse off than her. Why do you only feel sorry for her? Aren't the homeless under the bridge worth your pity? Are you going to provide a home for every poor person? A hint of embarrassment flashed across his face. He opened his mouth, but the words got stuck in his throat. He couldn't say anything to argue back. See, he wasn't clueless that his actions were out of line. He just didn't care. Didn't care about my dignity, my feelings. So, why bother? "Mark, let's end this amicably. Save yourself some dignity. You're 30 years old, not 3. When you do something, you have to face the consequences." I pushed the car door open and got out. I was scared of being in a car driven by someone so emotionally unstable. I didn't dare to stay. "Markero morning at 9, I'll wait for you at the courthouse entrance." Just before turning to leave, I suddenly thought of something happy. The corners of my mouth curved up, and I turned back to congratulate him. "Oh, right, I heard Johnny brought back a younger brother for you from outside, 6 years younger. Congrats." His face completely darkened. Johnny really kept that quiet. Waiting for the illegitimate son from outside to grow up and become independent before bringing him home? How is that not fatherly love as heavy as a mountain? I heard that one was also born to Johnny's true love from his younger days. His family really had a value loyalty and righteousness tradition passed down through the generations, huh? I heard that guy had already started taking over some of the Jiang family's business. They say he's a business genius. Mark was already pretty average in the business world. Before, I helped him out with a lot of things. Now, without the support of the Song family, how much leverage did he really have left to fight? I was feeling sorry for you, being old and unwanted later. That's why I wanted to give you one last chance. Since you don't know what's good for you, fine, let's get divorced. He was burning with anger, yelling at me, but the words that came out sounded ridiculous. Clara was right, he really would never learn to grow up. He was clearly just a paper tiger that could be easily poked through, but he still wanted to act like a real lion, showing his teeth and claws to scare the hunter. I didn't look back. I just let him posture there. The next day, he showed up on time. Cloud was in the car too. I pulled out my phone with interest and took a few pictures of them together, thinking they might come in handy someday. Better safe than sorry. If you regret it now, I can still give you one last chance. Mark held his head high, offering me the last chance with a reluctant look. I smiled slightly and turned to go into the office. Diana, don't you regret this? I'd heard him say that so many times already. So annoying. I came out with the divorce certificate, feeling great, smiling, and even had the energy to take some wedding candy from a couple getting married next to us, just to share the joy. Mark, meanwhile, had a dark, miserable face the whole time, not saying a word, looking like he'd lost everything. He was probably not in a good mood, but who cared? From this moment on, we were just familiar strangers. Oh, right, Cloud waiting outside was in a pretty good mood too. She gave me a fake smile and said sarcastically, "I'll take good care of my uncle from now on, Auntie Song. Thanks for letting him have me." I raised an eyebrow and just looked at Mark with a half smile. "Oh, so this is your type. Guess I was too high class for you before, that's why you didn't care for someone like me. TSK, you guys really are birds of a feather." If Clara knew what kind of guy she dated, she'd probably dig a hole and hide underground overnight. So embarrassing. Someone like her isn't even one bit as good as Clara, and you're still trying to play the deeply in love guy? You should just go home and drink milk. Mark's face went from green to red with anger, and he pointed at me with a trembling finger, but couldn't say a word. Finally, he just shook off Cloud's hand and stormed away. Cloud glared at me fiercely, then scurried off after him. I clapped my hands, feeling refreshed and laughing out loud. After taking care of the last of these small things, I went back to Los Angeles. This time, I stayed for a full 3 months. If Grandpa hadn't called me to say Johnny's birthday was coming up, I would have stayed longer, or maybe even waited until the baby was born before coming back. Even though Mark and I were divorced, it hadn't been announced publicly yet. The elders probably didn't know. But we had been close for so many years, it was only right that I go to Johnny's birthday. After getting off the plane, the person who came to pick me up this time was actually Mark's brother who'd just been brought home, Jay. He had this rebellious vibe about him, but his words and actions were very proper. I raised my eyebrows and didn't say anything. Jay curved his lips, smiling, and walked slowly forward, taking my suitcase. "Hi, sister-in-law. You must be tired from your trip." I scoffed. "You've been in the family for a while now. Your news shouldn't be that out of date. You must know that Mark and I are already divorced, right?" "Hi, Daisy." His face didn't change, and he smoothly changed what he called me. Totally like a fox, with a mind full of tricks. But talking to smart people was easy. It was worth the effort I put into helping him get a firm footing in the family. "How have things been lately?" Jay drove smoothly, and I was starting to get sleepy, but there were some things I needed to know first, so I forced myself to stay awake and asked casually. "The family still doesn't know about your divorce. Mark's been down lately, not going to see Cloud much, and not really paying attention to the company. Seems like you really broke his heart, Daisy." Jay seemed to think of something amusing and chuckled softly. "Heh, that just made it easier for me. I've already gotten half the company's shareholders on my side, and he hasn't even noticed. He's still stuck in his little romantic drama." I nodded, satisfied. Definitely a business genius. To reach this point in just a few months. Mark didn't lose for nothing. I touched my still flat stomach. Kind of glad this kid wasn't his. With his genes, he probably couldn't produce a smart kid anyway. The dinner party was held at home. A lot of people from the industry were there. I arrived a bit late, the dinner had already started. Mark was chatting casually with a few friends he'd known since childhood, but his eyes kept glancing towards the entrance. As soon as he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he immediately stood up straight, but his face instinctively turned serious, as if waiting for me to go up to him first. I rolled my eyes, turned around, grabbed a glass of water, and went around smiling and greeting all the elders. "Happy birthday." I bowed slightly to Johnny and said a few congratulatory words with a smile. Johnny chatted with me happily for a bit, then changed the subject and brought up me and Mark. Daisy, when are you planning to have a child? I froze, glancing out of the corner of my eye at Mark, who had somehow appeared beside Johnny. He clearly hadn't told his family the truth yet. I was hesitating whether to tell the truth, when Mark impatiently cut in, Dad, why are you being so nosy? I'm not done having fun yet. Johnny glared at him. I was asking Daisy, what's it to you? I looked down and smiled. He was still like this, only caring about himself, doing whatever he wanted. Never thinking about my situation. He also didn't know how many uncles and cousins in my Song family were watching me, watching my stomach. Without an heir, I wouldn't be able to inherit the whole family business. The business my grandpa and even my father built would eventually have to be handed over to someone else. I looked up and scanned the group of people subtly watching us, touched my stomach, my eyes gentle, and smiled as I said, already expecting. Johnny froze, then burst out laughing. Ha ha ha, good. 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 The people around us had complicated expressions, but they all started congratulating Mark. Congrats, congrats. Mark stood frozen, his eyes flickering between bright and dark, his eyebrows slightly furrowed. He just kept a straight face, giving perfunctory responses to the people around him. After the party broke up, he stopped me, his tone impatient but with a hint of hidden pleasure. Diana, we've been divorced for 3 months, and you're still lying? Is this fun? Let's see how you're going to pull a child out of nowhere to explain to the family later. Or, did you come to your senses and want to get back together? If you beg me, I might consider it out of consideration for our past relationship. I looked up at his smug expression and interrupted him, confused. When did I ever say the child was yours? He chuckled softly, looking at me sideways. Diana, are you playing hard to get? You're really pregnant? The kid is mine, right? Besides me, who else do you even know? You're not trying to trick me first, and then after giving birth to my kid, use that as leverage to make me do what you want? I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and my face turned cold. Mark, if you're not thinking straight, go see a doctor. But Mark was completely convinced. He firmly believed the kid I was pregnant with was his. He thought I was denying it because I wanted him to regret it, wanted him to chase after me like crazy to get me back. In the following months, he kept showing up in front of me, his eyes soft, staring at my slowly growing belly. I couldn't avoid him, so I just urged Jay to move faster and take over all of the family's shares sooner. While I was at it, I told Jay to create more problems for Mark to keep him busy, so he wouldn't keep showing up in front of me for no reason. On the day I gave birth, Mark also stubbornly waited outside the delivery room. I didn't bother with him anymore. Once the baby was born, he'd see the appearance and know. Sure enough, when I came out of the delivery room with the baby, he grinned when he saw the child, but his smile immediately vanished, turning to an ashen look. Diana, how could you do this to me? The baby was mixed race. You could tell at a glance that he had absolutely nothing to do with Mark Jiang. But I didn't have the energy to waste any more words on him. I had Grandpa find someone to drag him out. I also had Grandpa deliver the divorce agreement and some intimate photos of him and Cloud to Johnny. When Johnny showed up with a dark face, I was playing with the baby. He bowed deeply to my grandpa and then scolded Mark a few times in front of me. Mark, that rebellious son, actually divorced Daisy behind my back and did something so shameful outside. As his father, I just found out now. This is truly a family disgrace. Uncle Song, don't worry, from now on I'll treat Daisy like my own daughter. Our two families' relationship won't change because of this scoundrel. Grandpa lay in his rocking chair, smiling without saying anything, just looking up and signaling for me to speak. I stood up, bowed slightly, and said with a smile, Johnny, our two families have been close for so many years, how could that relationship break because of such a small matter? However, when it comes to business, we still need to find the right person to handle it. Some people are just not cut out for this line of work, so let's not force it. If this one doesn't work, can't we just replace him with another? Johnny, you wouldn't dare to hand over such a huge family business to someone unreliable, would you? They're all sons, so whoever is capable should take over. That's the only way for the family business to prosper and wealth to flow in. Right, Johnny? Johnny glanced at my grandpa, who never bothered with anything, then looked at me, who was completely in charge. His eyes darted around, and he nodded thoughtfully, repeatedly saying yes with a smile. In their casual chat, they decided Mark's fate and the future relationship dynamic between our families. People who make mistakes always have to pay the price. On the baby's first birthday, I officially took over all of the Song family's businesses. And Jay successfully took over the entire family. When Mark came to find me, I almost didn't recognize him. He'd lost a lot of weight and looked completely run down. He'd lost all his former arrogance. I heard he was kicked out of the Song family's shareholder meeting and was now just barely getting by on the allowance his dad gave him every month. He licked his dry lips, his expression complicated, and stared at me for a long time before speaking. Diana, I heard it was you who suggested to my dad that Jay take over the family business. Do you hate me that much? Now that I've lost everything, are you happy? Cloud doesn't love me at all. As soon as she heard my dad gave up on me, she took my money and ran off. But I called the cops right away. Defrauding someone of a huge amount of money, that's enough to put her in jail for a few years. Consider it revenge for you. I really was wrong before. I came to apologize. Can you forgive me? Give us a chance to start over. I frowned, looking at the man in front of me. I felt nothing inside, just a little disgusted. I thought he might have learned his lesson after falling so hard this time. Guess not. I crossed my arms, looked him up and down, and sneered. You never see your own flaws. You never look at yourself to see where you went wrong. You're coming to beg me now, but it's not because you think you were wrong. It's just because you have nothing now and want to use my influence to rise again. Do you think I'm stupid? Or do you think I'm some kind of garbage dump? His face changed again and again, and he left angrily, gritting his teeth. I never saw him again after that. They say he completely gave up, spending all day drinking, not listening to anyone. But what did that have to do with me? When Jay told me these things, I was teaching the baby to walk. Kids grow up so fast, different every day. I wanted to glue my eyes to him, afraid of missing any of his growth. But I still had a ton of things to deal with at the company. I really didn't have any energy to care about someone who was no longer relevant to me. Jay squatted beside me with a rattle drum, playing with the baby, and said, seemingly casually, the baby is 3 years old now. A child needs a father for their childhood to be perfect, right? I froze and said calmly, the love I give him is enough for him to grow up healthy in body and mind. Sometimes, a father's presence is actually worse for a child's growth. They won't need marriage to maintain their relationship in the future. I hope we can become mutually beneficial partners. He lowered his eyes and never brought up the topic again. The most solid relationship in this world is still built on shared interests. Love? Sure, give it a shot. Marriage? Nah, forget it. Let me know if you need any further assistance.